Good morning, children. Today we are going to do the assignments of Unit 2. Okay, Unit 2 has the first chapter as Nelson Mandela, The Long Walk to Freedom, and the second one is the poem A Tiger in the Zoo. We are going to discuss for both of them. Yesterday I told you about the precision in the answers. Okay, why I expect precision in your answers, children? Because whenever any specific question is asked, it's not that whatever you know you would have to write it. Ma'am, I know the summary of the poem, so I will write the summary even if you ask the message or the theme of the poem. It's not that. Read the question well, because according to the question would be your answer. Before I begin, I would also like to explain you that how exactly your answers are evaluated in the board exams. See, in your board, every answer according to its weightage is evaluated by these three scales: the content, the accuracy, and the expression. When it comes to content, it includes the value points of the answers. What are the value points which you have to mention according to the question asked? Along with that, it also includes whether you fulfill the criteria of the word limit. If your answer has to be 30 to 40 words, you cannot answer it in 80 to 100 words. If it is 80 to 100 words, you cannot answer it in 100 to 120. So content includes both your value points plus the weightage, and along with that word limit to be kept in mind. Then comes the accuracy. How far was there a fluency in your answer, the accuracy in your answer? Or you just were beating around the bush? As I said just now, message is asked and you're writing the summary. I'm asking you something else and you're writing the story of the chapter. It means your answer lacks accuracy. And finally comes the expression. Expression means your grammar and the vocabulary used in the answers. So this particular weightage is fragmented and then your answer is evaluated. The examiners in your answer would be writing it this way: 1 plus half. Then only you would be given 2 on 2. If suppose there were many grammatical mistakes, if suppose it was not accurate, but yes, somewhere related to that, those value points were found. So it would be 1 plus 0 plus 0. This is the way the answers are evaluated in boards. So have a quick look. When it's a 2-mark answer, it's 1 mark content, half accuracy, half expression. In a 3-mark answer, it's 2 marks content, half accuracy, half expression. Whereas in the detailed answers, the long answers, 6-mark question, it would be 3 marks of content, 1.5 accuracy, 1.5 expression. And this way only your answers are evaluated here in the school plus in the boards as well. Okay, so that is why I'm discussing all these assignments with you, children, so that you know how exactly you would be using your words in the answers. Fine. Now let's quickly begin with the assignment 2. I'm sharing the screen. Okay, let's begin with the questions which are given in between the chapter. Where did the ceremonies take place? I'll give a quick reading, children. Listen carefully. Where did the ceremonies take place? Can you name any public building in India that are made of sandstones? The ceremonies took place in the campus of the Union Building of Pretoria, which were attended by dignitaries and leaders of many nations. In India, Rashtrapati Bhavan and Red Fort are buildings made of red stone. Can you say how 10th May is an autumn day in South Africa? As South Africa is in the southern hemisphere, May falls in the autumn season. Thus 10th May in South Africa is an autumn day. Next, at the beginning of his speech, Mandela mentions an extraordinary human disaster. What does he mean by this? What is the glorious human achievement he speaks of at the end? By an extraordinary human disaster, Mandela means to state the practice of apartheid in South Africa. During this, there was a racial segregation based on color, and the blacks in South Africa suffered a lot. They were not allowed to demand freedom or any right. Mandela himself did spend many years on infamous Robben Island as a prisoner where he was beaten mercilessly. He considered it as a great glorious human achievement that a black person became the president of a country where the blacks were not even considered human beings and they were treated badly. Varun, Dashveen, Urja, keep your videos on. Keep your videos on. Then, what does Mandela thank the international leaders for? Mandela felt very privileged to welcome the international leaders at the swearing-in ceremony because not too long ago, the South Africans were considered outlaws. He thus thanks all of them for having come to witness the historical ceremony. This was a gesture of international recognition to a newly born, free, democratic nation, and it could be considered as a common victory for justice, peace, and human dignity. Then, what does Mandela thank the international leaders for? Mandela felt very privileged to welcome the international leaders at the swearing-in ceremony. No, we did this one. Fifth one. What ideals does Nelson Mandela set for the future of South Africa? Nelson Mandela set the ideals of liberating people from bondage of poverty, deprivation, and suffering. He also set the ideal for a society where there would be no discrimination based on gender or racial origins. What did the military generals do? How did their attitude change and why? The highest military generals of South African Defence Force saluted Mandela and they pledged their loyalty, which was of great significance, as during apartheid era, they would have arrested him. The change in their attitude was because of struggle and sacrifices put in by many heroes of South Africa. This struggle not only ensured the freedom of a nation struggling with apartheid, but also brought a change in the mindsets of many. He believed that love can also be taught and human being is naturally inclined towards love rather than hate. Okay, why were two national anthems sung during the inauguration ceremony? On the auspicious occasion of the inauguration, two national anthems, one by the whites and the other by the blacks, symbolizing the equality of the blacks and the whites, were sung. Fine. Next, how does Mandela describe the systems of government in his country in the first decade and then in the final decade? In the first decade, the whites erected a system of racial domination against the blacks, thus creating the basis of one of the harshest and the most inhumane societies the world has ever known. And in the final decade, the previous system had been overturned and replaced by one which recognized rights and freedom of all people, regardless of the color of their skin. What does courage mean to Mandela? For Mandela, courage does not mean the absence of fear, but a victory over fear. According to him, brave men need not be fearless, but they should be able to conquer fear. Next question, which does Mandela think is natural, to love or to hate? According to him, love comes more naturally to the human heart than hatred. Now this question is important, the 11th one. What twin obligations does Mandela mention? Mandela mentions that every man has twin obligations. The first is to his family parents, wife and children. And the second obligation is to his people, community and his country. Next. What did being free mean to Mandela as a boy and as a student? How does he contrast these transitory freedoms with the basic and honorable freedoms? Transitory means something which is for a short time, temporary. Okay? Like any other kid, for Mandela, freedom meant to make merry and enjoy the blissful life. Once one becomes an adult, the antics of childhood looks like transitory. Antics here refers to the pranks, the mischiefs. Because most of the childish activities are wasteful from an adult's perspective. Once you are an adult, you have to earn a livelihood to bring the bacon home. Bring the bacon home means earning the bread for the family. Okay? Feeding them. It's only then when you get an honorable existence in the family and in the society when you are really contributing considerably to the family. Does Mandela think the oppressor is free? Why or why not? There's a line. Neither the oppressed nor the oppressor is free. So this is an explanation to that. Mandela does not think that the oppressor is free because according to him, an oppressor is a victim of hatred. A person who is behind the bars of prejudice. Prejudice means holding a wrong perception towards anyone without even knowing the actual reality. When you believe what someone else said, prejudice means that you actually don't know the truth, but you just believe what someone else said. That is prejudice. So the oppressor is behind the bars of prejudice and narrow-mindedness. He realizes that both the oppressor and the oppressed are robbed of their humanity and peace. Okay, these were the questions which were in between the chapter. Now we are discussing the ones which are given after the chapter. Why did such a large number of international leaders attend the inauguration? What did it signify the triumph of? A large number of international leaders attended the inauguration ceremony of the new republic as a gesture of solidarity. The inhuman regime of apartheid was universally hated and condemned. After a long struggle, the blacks got a glorious victory under Nelson Mandela. The end of racial discrimination and segregation was a common victory for justice, peace, and human dignity. Therefore, the presence of international community conferred hope and glory to the newborn liberty. It was the significance of the victory of good over evil and triumph of a tolerant society without any discrimination. What does Mandela mean when he says he is simply the sum of all African patriots who had gone before him? This question is important, children. By saying that he is simply the sum of all those African patriots, Mandela wants to pay his tribute to all the people who have sacrificed their lives for the sake of freedom. He says that he is grateful to those who had gone before him. Had gone before him means who died before him, who laid their lives before him. Because those heroes of past had paved the path of cooperation and unity for him. He remembers the selfless struggles and sacrifices of those black heroes against the most hated regime of apartheid in South Africa. He gratefully acknowledges their suffering and courage, which paved their path to freedom. He believes that he had just carried forward their struggle to liberty to its logical end. Therefore, he could try to come to power to bring equality for his people with their support. Okay? The next then. Would you agree that the depths of oppression create heights of character? How does Mandela illustrate this? The policy of apartheid unleashed a reign of terror and oppression on the black people, but it could not break their resolution and determination. Rather, the deep oppression and brutality produced patriots of extraordinary courage wisdom and generosity, hence proving the statement that depths of operation create heights of character. Nelson Mandela illustrates this by giving examples of great heroes like of South Africa like Oliver Tambo, Walter Sisulu and others who were inspired to sacrifice their lives in the long freedom struggle. Children, whosoever is doing these pranks, if I get to know children, you would be in a great difficulty. If I get to know that who's doing these things, I would get to know, you would be in a difficulty. Kindly control yourself and take the classes seriously. Then it was about South Africa. Now let's discuss about India. India is full of such examples. During our freedom struggle, there was a galaxy of leaders of great characters, and the oppression of British rule created and encouraged people of noble characters like Mahatma Gandhi, Lala Lajpat Rai, Jawaharlal Nehru, Chandrasekhar Azad, Sardar Bhagat Singh and many more. All these leaders suffered a lot but remained courageous while facing utmost cruelty at the hands of the British. Okay. Now, how did Mandela's understanding of freedom change with age and experience? Okay. With age and experience, Mandela understood the real meaning of freedom. See, suppose this question comes as for the 3-mark question. Okay. So this has 3 value points. 3 value points means as a child, as a young boy, then as he grew older. So obviously, if you are missing any one of the value point, your marks shall be deducted. Okay. So let's discuss. With age and experience, Mandela understood the real meaning of freedom. As a child, freedom for him was to run in the fields, swim in a stream, or roast mealies under the stars. As a young boy, he thought that he was born free and believed that as long as he obeyed his father and he abided by the customs of his tribe, he was free in every possible manner. But as he grew older, freedom to raise a family and freedom to earn livelihood started dominating his thoughts. But then gradually he realized that he was selfish during his boyhood and he had just been enjoying transitory freedoms, temporary freedoms. He slowly understood that it was not just his freedom that was being curtailed, but the freedom of all the people of the black community. He then desired and craved for the freedom from fear and prejudice. Age and experience widened his perspective of freedom. Next, how did Mandela's hunger for freedom change his life? Mandela realized in his youth that it was not just his freedom that was being curtailed, but the freedom of all the people of the black community. This changed the fearful man to a fearless rebel. He sacrificed the comforts of a settled family life to fight for a greater cause. The motive, desire for the freedom of his people so that they may live their lives with dignity and self-respect, animated his life thereon. Animated means it brought life to his aim for the fight against the policy of racial discrimination. He then joined the African National Congress, and this changed him from a frightened young man into a bold one who fought against racial prejudice. It made him a rebel, a homeless monk, and a crusader for freedom. Okay, so these were the answers of the chapter Nelson Mandela. Now we begin with the answers of Tiger in the Zoo. Okay, I'm giving you a short synopsis of the poem to make you recall. Tiger in the Zoo poem is about those wild animals who wish to live in the forest, which is their natural abode, but then they are forced to live in a cage. So how do those ferocious animals, those strong animals actually feel when they are confined in a cage? Okay. So this practice is discussed, that what would that tiger be feeling when he is put into a cage, confined into a cage. Okay, so now here the very first question of the poem is given, that find words from the poem that describe the movements and the actions of the tiger when he is in the cage and when he is in the wild. Wild means the forest, his natural place. So when he is in the cage, he is stalking a few steps of his cage. He is staring at the brilliant stars. He is hearing the voice of the patrolling cars. He is stepping in a quiet rage and he is ignoring the visitors. But when he is in the forest, he is lurking in the shadow. He is sliding through the long grass. He is snarling around houses, terrorizing the villagers and bearing his white fangs and claws. All these things had been explained while I did the poem with you in the class. Okay. Now the questions. Notice the use of a word repeated in lines such as these. On paths of velvet, quiet in his quiet rage. Quiet repeated twice. Then he stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. Repetition here. So the poet is means the question here is, what do you think is the effect of this repetition in these lines? Repetition is a poetic device used by the poet in order to emphasize the thought, and here in the poem it refers to the increasing intensity of the tiger's rage along with his helpless silence. He feels helpless when he is put into the cage. Okay. Now we will discuss the first one first. Velvet quiet refers to the quiet velvet pads of the tiger, which cannot run or leap. A tiger, just because he has that cushioned feet, he cannot run or no. Because of that velvet pads, he is there inside the cage and his movement seems to be very quiet. They can only walk around the limited space in the cage. His unbound strength turns into a quiet rage. The use of the quiet rage symbolizes the anger and ferocity that is building up inside the tiger as it wants to run out into the forest and attack a deer, but the rage is quiet because he is locked in the cage and he feels helpless. His anger is suppressed, but he has to surpass it because he has no option left. The repetition of quiet has thus brought immense beauty to the poem. Then, the brilliant eyes and the brilliant stars. Brilliant for the tiger's eyes as well as the stars also brings out the magnificence of these lines. The tiger's eyes shine brightly in the darkness of the night. Stars too are shining bright. The tiger stares at the brilliant stars with his brilliant eyes, dreaming. Actually, he is dreaming or craving about how beautiful his life could have been if he had been in the forest, which was his natural habitat. The repetition thus gives a wonderful effect to the poem. These repetitions in the poem intensify his loss of freedom. His confinement leads to the misery in his caged habitat. He is unhappy with his unnatural abode. The poet here tries to expose the miserable life led by the animals in the zoo. So with this, we finish the assignments of our Unit 2. Okay. In the next class, we shall be doing complaint letter.